Welcome everyone to Where Everyone is Welcome. This is the second series in the School of Love, and I'm very excited to keep rolling out the research on the nature of love and its relevance to our lives. But just so you know, you don't need to have taken the first series in order to connect to this one. But if you are on the School of Love email list, you'll receive the link to the playlist for the first series. If you're not on the email list, you can send your email to connect@schooloflove.buzz, and you will be in the School of Love loop to get all the notifications. In the first series, a lot of foundational concepts are laid out about love and everything around it, which is why I'm now calling the first series A Theory of Everything, including love. So please, everyone, continue to look and learn from the first series, where some big questions are looked at, such as, is there a purpose to existence? What is freedom? What is the difference between ego and egotism? The importance of self-love, etc. Series 1 also looks at the sacred geometry of love and how to get love on the vertical axis from above so you can give more of that on the horizontal plane. Series 1 also looks at how to deal with personal blockages through forgiveness and how the renewed mind is the portal to power. And finally, it looks at the ultimate aspiration of life, which I call the planet, to give birth to and manifest a new creation, the one body made up of individual universal human beings unified by the evolutionary force of love. In the second series, we'll be looking more at the practicalities around that, building and unifying together the one body. Thus, the name of this series is Love in Action. And this opening session to the second series is called Love versus Desire. What's the difference? Desire. Let's look at desire. What is desire? Desire is often mistaken as love. But are love and desire the same thing? It is true, both love and desire can operate within us on the level of feelings. But we had a look at love in the first series and saw that love is more than a feeling. We all know the song, More Than a Feeling. The song really should be called Much More Than a Feeling, because love is much, much more than just a feeling. Maybe you never thought there was a difference between love and desire. Just as a lot of people don't realize there's a big difference between the different kinds of love. Because in English, we just use the one word, love. In the first series, we saw how the Greek civilization had a number of words we translate into the one word love. Familia, phililia, phalutia, pragma, ludus, eros, agape, each pointing to a different manifestation of love. Since the Greek civilization, in contrast our civilization, we have really confused ourselves, even dumbed down ourselves with this one word love. But part of the objective of this series is to unpack more fully what love can be and put it into action through practice. This is actually an urgent need for our civilization, or we may go the way of the Greek civilization. It's that big, the work that we're doing here. We don't use the one word food when sending someone to the grocery store. We would be more specific and itemize what different kinds of food and what quantity. We need to be as clear in our loving as we are in our shopping. Because in fact, when it comes to love and desire, there is an element of shopping. So here we are looking at two words, love and desire. Is there a difference? First, what is the word desire pointing to? The word desire is an interesting word. It comes from two words, de and sire. De means of or from, and siri from the root sidiri or sidereal, which refers to the stars. Desire means from or of the stars. So the word desire is pointing to the origin of this impulse coming from the stars. It's a cosmic force. But we already said in Series 1 that love could also be considered a cosmic force. So far, we're not seeing any difference between love and desire. The word Sidiri, which gives us the word desire, refers to the stars, and so does the word astral. And this is ancient wisdom handed down to us, embedded in language, pointing to their understanding of desire as something that originates from beyond this plane of existence, from the astral plane, the influence of stars and planets. It is something from the realm of stars or the astral realm. One could say the planet for Earth is influenced by things off-planet, by planets beyond our own. And so in a way, we could say it is beyond our control. And doesn't desire sometimes feel like that? Something that is beyond our control. Take a moment to ponder that. How at times desire feels like something beyond our control, perhaps making us out of control. I was asked recently, is it possible to stop yourself from falling in love with someone? This is a good question, and maybe one that many of you have had. And hopefully we will shed some light on this in this session, because it really raises questions about our power, and to the extent to which we have control over things, presently and evolving into the future. So with regard to desire, you could say it is part of our makeup, coming from the cosmos that created us. And I want to use that term, the cosmos that created us, when referring to the forces that have brought us to this point in our development. The cosmos that created us. As we saw in the first series, we don't need to step into the debate between evolutionists and creationists, debating whether a God created us or if it's all evolution. We can just refer to it as the cosmos that created us. This we know for sure. The cosmos created us. There is no debate. And to be able to understand more deeply what that looks like will come when we develop ourselves to the point where we can understand it more deeply. Then we'll understand what that means, the cosmos that created us. But in the meantime, there is no debate as to whether desire is a part of our makeup. We all experience the phenomenon of desire in our lives. So in going further in understanding the difference between love and desire, let us break down desire into the different levels we experience it as a phenomenon in our lives. We experience desire on the physical level. We desire food. We see fresh fruit and desire it. Or someone mentions ice cream and we desire that. Other physical desires may be to sleep, cleanse the body, have touch and intimacy with another. On an emotional level, we may desire conversation with another, or to go to an art gallery to feed our emotions with art. On a mental level, we may desire to study something in order to gain knowledge. We may even feel a desire to debate against another person's viewpoint in order to develop our own. These are mental desires. And on a spiritual level, we may feel a desire to pray, or we desire to learn to be a healer. We may experience desire to get to know the divine better. Or, ironically, we may even feel a desire to love, to develop our love, or to perfect our love, as I call it in Series 1, perfecting our love. We may desire to right a wrong, to forgive or be forgiven, to correct karma, all of which really points to the ultimate impulse of desire, the impulse to be free, which we saw in Session 1 of Series 1, is the implicit reason for existence. In a way, it is hidden, a hidden meaning of existence, hidden because in order to be free, nothing of freedom can be imposed upon us. It sounds paradoxical, but we have to come to freedom out of freedom. So we could say that the ultimate purpose of desire, with a capital D that drives us, both consciously and unconsciously, is to be free, with a capital F. How complex it can be. As we see, we experience the phenomenon of desire on multi-levels. So we could call it multi-level desire that has implanted us from the starry cosmos that created us. Desire drives us on all levels of our being, and as such is something innate in us, and to a degree out of our control. Just as things considered as fate are seemingly out of our control. Sometimes we have too much desire, or even too little desire. In this session, I want to show you how to work with desire so it is something we have greater control over, to put to work in our pursuit to be free. How to understand and work with desire as beings that have potential, not only desiring to survive, but to transform this force into something of the highest ideal, to live and give love into the world as a transformative and evolutionary force. This series is called Love in Action. But first, let's take a moment at desire in action. For example, you feel desire for someone and think, oh, I'm feeling something very strong. I must be falling in love. You may not even know them, but you feel something very strong within yourself. Then they open their mouth and say something, and suddenly all desire disappears. It just evaporates, or it bursts like a balloon. It may happen suddenly, or may dissipate slowly as you get to know them. And you realize they're not what you thought or hoped they were. I used to get this all the time when watching movies. I'd sit there and feel a huge attraction to the female lead in the movie. And of course, these characters are usually designed to be attractive, to play off the deep desires of our psyche. They are dressed and made up with all the makeup tricks to make them attractive. And why not? You pay good money to watch a movie, so you at least want something attractive to look at. But made up is the key concept. They are made up with makeup. But also the character is made up in the mind of the story writer. The story is fictitious, and the person playing the role is simply a paid actor, doing a job, doing what she's told to do, and looking the way she is told to look. But herein lies the power. Not unlike the theater of ancient Greek times, or ritual drama of indigenous tribes, these characters are crafted to play off a deep part of our psyche. In fact, to move our psyche. So we move on a journey with them. One could even say an alchemical journey of transformation. So we are at a different place in ourselves than where we were at the beginning of the story. It's working with the archetypes. The intent of the original theater was to let the gods from the starry realms to breathe through the actors, touch the audience, and bring them closer to a connection with the starry realms. Unfortunately, what we get today in entertainment is a watered-down bastardization of this original intent, and often preys upon the forces of desire within our psyche. We should observe this phenomenon in our lives so we can see what is being done to us. Movies these days play off the inherent desire deep within our being. And not only something deep within our being, but something deep beyond our being. The desire of the stars. And so is it any wonder we feel desire for the star of the movie star. We are not really in love with either the character or the actor. We are experiencing the archetypal phenomenon of desire. That is from beyond and wants to take us beyond ourselves, and perhaps even ultimately beyond the other. But we get caught in the Maya matrix if we don't understand and work consciously with this power of desire. This is why understanding the sacred geometry of love is so important. To understand the difference between the vertical axis of love and the horizontal axis. It's easy to get lost looking for love on the horizontal axis. It's like the country and western song, looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love in too many faces. We get pulled along by the Maya and illusions of life, searching for something on the horizontal plane, not realizing we're really looking for something beyond this plane. But when we take the time to initiate our connection with the vertical axis and connect with planes other than this horizontal axis, when we take the time and establish out of freedom of will this fundamental difference, we will find we are freer to distinguish what is desire and what is truly love. To not get drawn into things that play off unconscious archetypes of our psyche, and be free to make choices as to what we align and identify with. In other words, we can see what is simply an earthly desire and what is a cosmic desire. But let us be clear. Even when we feel cosmic desire, the desire of the stars implanted in us, this is not necessarily love. Remember, love is more than a feeling. And guess what? Love may not even be a feeling at all. We associate love with a feeling somewhere between bubbly and bliss. But I'm not sure if bubbly and bliss is what Mother Teresa was feeling while serving the sick and dying in the streets of Calcutta, India. For her, love was a choice, and it was an action, despite whatever feelings were involved. Her feelings might have been anywhere from intense compassion to a profound sense of duty. It all brings us back to looking at what the human being truly has to work with in this world, and then working with it. Let's do a little exercise. Raise your finger. Okay, who raised your finger? I may have asked you to do it, but who did it? You did it. The I in you. It is the I in you that chooses to do something or not. Now, say I and point the finger. Where did you point? I hope you didn't point at me. You should have pointed at yourself, unless you are completely dissociated and are identifying your insides with the outsides, which can actually happen to people. They lose their grounded sense of their I. But assuming you pointed at yourself when you said I, where in yourself did you point? Did you point at your head? I? Did you point at your genitals? I? You probably pointed somewhere in the middle, in the center of your being, in the area of the center of centers, the heart. That is usually where we most identify with ourselves, the heart center, our heart's intelligence that knows itself. But this center of centers, the heart center, is held by poles at each end. The head center, where the brain and nervous system have their pole. At the other pole, the metabolic, reproductive limb system. These two poles, the thinking center and the willing center, support the center of centers, the heart center, making up our threefold nature, where we reside as an I am, self-aware, egoic being. Let's do the threefold coherence practice from Series 1. Place a hand on the heart. another hand on the belly. Let the heart rest on the power of your belly. Feel that power there that the heart can rest on. Now focus on your heart. Breathe as if you are breathing with your heart, because this is actually what is meant to be happening. Breathing with your heart. Now bring to mind an image or memory of something that gives you a sense of appreciation. Something that opens up a sense of gratitude and appreciation. A time where you felt that, or some image that evokes that. And muster a deep sense of that within yourself. This helps to build the threefold coherence that is innate within us, but takes consciousness to maintain and foster. In the first series, we looked at the human as a threefold being. Now when it comes to love and action, we can say that if this threefoldness is out of balance, not only will our actions be out of balance, but we will also going to be vulnerable, including vulnerable to our own power of desire. Not only on a physical level are we vulnerable, where we may succumb to the number one disease on the planet, heart disease, where we may have a heart attack, but we may also be vulnerable on an emotional level and have a heart attract. That's right, you heard correctly, a heart attract. This is where things on the outside play off our inside to trigger our heart forces, which are vulnerable and need to be held, but not necessarily by someone else. Have you ever felt where you were having a heart attract? Where something got triggered, something felt out of control, like something needed to be held, but it couldn't? We need to learn to hold our own heart forces. Holding our heart between our own poles, our thinking and our will. We'll be looking at this more in a future session, where we see the importance to develop our own thinking capacity and our own will in order to have more control over ourselves, our desires, our heart, our capacity to love, and to not be vulnerable to heart attacks. So back to the question I was asked recently. Is it possible to stop yourself from falling in love with someone? Well, desire can seem to be beyond our control at times and make us feel out of control. And this sense of falling in love really may just be a sense of desire on some level that we feel, a feeling. But love, in its threefoldness, allows us to make choices about who we wish to love. Even who we wish to desire can be a choice, or to not desire, for that matter. And I will be introducing a technique in a moment that shows exactly how to have that. Let us allow these words and concepts to resonate for a moment while sitting with the mudra for the heart. A mudra is a hand seal which directs energy currents in a certain beneficial way, rather than the usual chaotic, disjointed way, which is the way most people's energy often is. And you know what the result is of chaotic, disjointed energy? Chaotic, disjointed consciousness. So this heart mudra, sometimes referred to as the blossom mudra, allows our energy to organize in a particular way to hold heart energy. Hold it in, but also open it to the outside, but in a non-chaotic and disjointed way. we're gaining more control over our energy and becoming less vulnerable to heart attacks when we learn ways to hold our own energy. So, back to the idea of desire. Desire reminds us that we are alive. Desire can express itself in the three kinds of warmth described in Series 1. The physical warmth, soul warmth, which is warmth of personality, and spiritual warmth. But we are also tested by the warmth and fire of desire. Warmth reminds us that we are alive. The pleasure produced by desire tells us we are alive. And the pain produced by desire also tells us we are alive. Desire draws us into the Maya matrix of illusion. And just as life can be dangerous, desire can also be dangerous. The love assignment for this session is going to be to look at how desire has been a powerful impulse in your life. Be it desire to be with someone, or the desire to go out and spend lots of money shopping, or the desire to have your own way, our own egotistical, egocentric way. As we start to look at how much of our life has been ruled by desire and not love, which is much more than a feeling and involves choices based on exercising intelligence and actions of the will based on the intelligence exercised, which may or may not result in a beautiful, bubbly, blissful feeling. Conversely, when we see how much unchecked desire has held sway, we may be a little shocked to see how much of our life has been lived like a dreamy animal. Has the I am, aware, egoic self been determining the direction? Or have we been driven by our own instincts and desires? And in light of this question, are we free? Are we born free? Do we live free? When I was a young boy, both my sisters were enamored by a movie called Born Free. It's about a couple in Africa who raise a lioness they name Elsa, and then eventually want to release Elsa into the wild rather than sending her to a zoo. Their rationale was that she was born free, and so she should be allowed to live free and die free, despite the fact that she was raised and domesticated by them in captivity. But are animals truly free, even when they are living in the wild? Animals are bound to their desires and instincts. One could perhaps say they are highly influenced by the starry astral realm and planetary forces, which are sometimes referred to as the zodiac or zodiac, which means circle of animals, or circle of astral animal forces, which cycles the desire of the cosmos that created us to lead us to grow out of that cycle and eventually become self-aware, self-determined, self-creating, free, universal human beings. But we're obviously not there yet. And in the meantime, we have free will to simply follow our desire or not. And what would cause us to not follow our desire? Ironically, love. Love might just be the influence that guides us to not follow the desire that works consciously and semi-consciously within us. And this appears to be the planet, to take that which drives us unconsciously or semi-consciously and make it conscious, to alchemize it, which means to transform it from an earthly directed force back as a cosmic force and tap its power to evolve ourselves forward. In a later session, we will look more deeply into the idea of ancient alchemical processes as applied to modern psychology and how personal and our personal development. We will also look at how love is a moral force to guide us in working with the natural forces of our being and the planet. Just as Elsa the lioness had to reacquaint herself with the instincts that would allow her to survive in the wild, humans need to become acquainted with and overcome these same instincts to some degree so we don't simply live like we're living in the wild. This is part of love's threefold power: to mediate the forward drive of desire, to instead lift us up in developing a stronger cosmic connection on the vertical axis, and not just living it out on the horizontal axis in a horizontal gesture, which is really the form of the animal. Otherwise what? Otherwise, what would happen? When we look at how these forces on a lower level work within the animal world, animals will stealthily stalk a prey. They are predatory, territorial. They will viciously stalk and kill whatever serves its animal-centric survival. Sound anything like a human who is working out of egotistical forces? I think so. An animal has very little room for choice. Perhaps when a lion is chasing a herd of antelope, it will make a choice between which of the slowest antelope it will take down. But the desire to eat the antelope is not something it asks for, any more than your desire to eat when hungry, sleep when tired, and have sex is something you ask for. It just comes with the territory. And to be fair, not all animal instincts are destructive. The mothering instinct of a mother wolf to its pup is as nurturing as anything a human mother would give to her child. Humans share a large overlap in the desire realm with animals. The difference is that a human mother could choose to not nurture its young. And it happens, where a human mother rejects the child. In fact, as we get further away from our natural instincts, the more we have to make these sorts of conscious choices in how we respond to the phenomenons of life. And this is where love plays a large role, as we will see. I would now like to introduce a simple technique, one that you can immediately use to work with the power of desire, to use it to move yourself forward in whatever direction you choose. This technique also gets us to work with the power of choice. The technique is a technology to allow you to tap the power of desire without being overrun by desire. It's called Decision, Desire, Details, Deliverance. Notice that desire is not the first D, but the second. Something else is positioned before desire. What? Decision. And that's revolutionary. A decision is made before desire comes, rather than waiting for the desire to come and then making the decision. I have practiced this for many years since I first learned it in my 20s, during my 4-year spiritual warrior training in the U.S. And I would have to attribute to it much of the success I have had in getting things done. I can honestly say that about myself. I get things done. I've written books, musicals, which I've produced on stage. I've run hundreds of workshops, classes, circles, retreats, not just because I've desired to, but because I decided to. Sometimes I wasn't even sure if I desired to, but I still decided to, because I knew deep down I didn't want to miss the opportunity. I wanted to push myself to see what I could accomplish. There are many people I have met who desire to do things. and talk about it, but never get around to doing it. Another thing I've learned in my spiritual warrior training is that there are three kinds of people in this world. First, there are people who make things happen. Second, there are people who watch things happen. And third, there are people who stand around asking, what's happening? I believe you are in the school of love because you are someone who is going to make things happen. And not just because you desire to, but because you have enough conviction to decide to do it and carry it through. You decided to be in the school of love, and you are here. So let's look at how the 4 Ds work. It all begins with the decision. Once this is made, the mind can now open the door for desire to come in. Until then, the door to desire is not fully open. There is hesitancy. It may be cracked open a little, but the full force of your desire and passion cannot come through. Once the decision is made and you are fully committed, the deep desire, the power of the stars, can shine through. Then it's just a matter of taking care of the details. And then finally, the delivery of the goal is accomplished. We can also observe how this technique engages us in our threefoldness. To get to the point of making a decision, we need to involve our thinking. Once we have done the thinking that produces the decision, we can let our feelings fill with desire. The power of passion has that direction, like a sail filling with wind that will carry us across the sea. The thinking acts as the helm to steer the course. Then in working through the details, we need to engage both the poles of our thinking and willing, taking action. This will continue until we fulfill the 4th D, which is the delivery of the thing we decided to do in the 1st D, the decision. Here we can see how desire, as something that manifests in the feeling realm, needs to be carried out by our thinking and will, under the auspices of the I am self-aware egoic self. Relying on only one part of our threefoldness can lead to an imbalance and will subvert our ability to manifest in this world. Because the power of desire can work against us. Desire out of control can easily lead to dependencies, addictions, possessiveness, and outright possession by things other than the I am self-aware egoic self. Rudolf Steiner gives a very good description of how we can get out of balance in his classic book, How to Know Higher Worlds, in chapter 9 entitled The Splitting of the Personality. There he speaks of different scenarios that can afflict us if we don't learn to work with the threefold forces within us in a balanced way. I would like to read from the source material to you. In one person, thinking may be more developed than feeling and willing, while in another, feeling or willing may be predominant. As long as the connection between thinking, feeling, and willing remain regulated by the higher laws of the cosmos, such developmental discrepancies do not cause any disturbing irregularities in the higher sense. If will predominates in a person, for example, then the cosmic laws ensure that other forces counterbalance it and keep it from becoming excessive. But once we begin esoteric training, then the regulating influences of feeling and thinking on the will ceases, and the will, now no longer held in check, constantly impels us on to tremendous performances of power. If we reach this point before we have mastered higher consciousness and are able to create harmony between our forces, then our will can run rampant. It can overwhelm us so that our feeling and thinking sink into complete powerlessness and we become slaves scourged by our will. As a result, we can become violent in character, rushing from one unbridled action to the next. We can also go astray in our feeling, if our feeling frees itself from the restraint of higher cosmic laws. A person inclined to revere others, for instance, can then become completely dependent on them, that he or she loses the will and ability to think. Instead of higher knowledge, such a person's lot is the most pitiful inner emptiness and impotence. If the natural tendency of our feelings is toward piety and religious exaltation, on the other hand, we can fall into raptures of religious self-gratification. A third evil arises when thinking predominates. This produces a contemplative nature, but one that is closed in upon itself and hostile to life. For a person of such a nature, the world has meaning only insofar as it provides objects to satisfy a boundless desire for wisdom. Thoughts no longer stir such a person to action or feelings. Instead, such people become indifferent and cold, avoiding contact with ordinary things as if they were nauseating or at least had lost all meaning. We can fall into willful violence, into sentimental luxuriating in feelings, or into a cold, loveless striving after knowledge. So, what is being said here is that we need to, out of freedom and consciousness, develop a new relationship to our desires, to our instincts. We have lost our instincts. We have lost common sense. But in fact, this is all part of our ego's education. To bring these powers of the earth and the past into alignment with the cosmic forces of the future. This is why I keep saying that time and space are two of our greatest teachers. They provide the environment for the egubation of the ego and the development of our moral intuition, which is really what will lead to love in action, rather than running on desire and passion. It's the only way to secure our freedom for the future. And the desire to be free is the greatest driving desire, implanted in the human by the cosmos that created us. Desire, desidereal, of the stars. It is not only in us, but implanted in the entire planet. This desire to be free runs through everything. It exists in the realm of the animals. We can see how an animal resists being caged. It resists being attacked. It resists being eaten by another animal. The fly I saw caught in a spider's web this morning did not want to be caught there. It was laboring to be free. It did not want to be eaten by the spider. It is implanted with the impulse to be free, as is everything in the planet. One of my favorite quotes from ancient scriptures, from the epistles of Paul, my paraphrasing of it. The whole creation groans and labors together until the glorious manifestation and liberation of the universal human. Until the glorious liberation of the universal human, everything is laboring to be liberated. But we are not there yet. Animals are not there yet. Their freedom is limited by their form. Our freedom is limited by our animal form and aspects of our misdirected desires. Yet we know form supports function. But we also know form imposes limits. So what does this mean? It means back to basics. Everything in the manifest realm is formed out of only two types of lines: straight lines and curved lines. Plants, animals, and humans are all constructed out of these two types of lines. Understanding this is important, and where the work of the cosmos that created us can now be taken by the hands of humans. We humans can do something to elevate the idea of straightness and curvedness to the level of our thinking. As explained in the first session of the first series, we can blend straight linear thinking with lateral, more fluid, intuitive thinking to construct within ourselves the capacity for omnidirectional cognition. For this is truly the only thing that holds promise for our liberation, for the liberation of all creation that groans and labors together until the manifestation of the universal human. And this is why love is so important in this quest for ultimate freedom. We wish to be loved and respected as a universal human. We want to be seen and loved as a universal human, to be included in the body of love, which is where I concluded the last session in Series 1 entitled The Universal Human in the One Body of Love. And this love and respect is something we can give to each other every day. To acknowledge the other as the beloved, as something more than a struggling mammal, but as equal to ourselves as an I am self-aware egoic being. We can give this love and respect every day of our lives. But this does not necessarily come automatically or easily. It is something we need to acquire and grow into. We can grow into it as we grow beyond our own self-centered egocentricity. And the good news is that we can do it. We are destined to do it. It is part of the planet. But it requires waking up. It requires freely saying yes to love. And it asks us to learn the skills of love so we can put love into action. The name of this series in the School of Love. And the next session in this series is called Love is Listening, with more practicalities to be learned in the School of Love. So thank you for being a student in the School of Love, not just here, but everywhere you go, wherever you be, 24/7. Because the School of Love is in session all the time, if you say yes to the School of Love. Listening, learning, and asking questions. Because love is listening. Love is listening to you as you listen to love. Thank you for listening. And now, the love assignment. Love in Action Session 1, Love versus Desire. 2 assignments. Number 1, look at times in your life where desire was running high, running the show perhaps. Did desire cause you to act in a way that was less than loving? How might you have chosen to act differently, in a way that would have been more loving and respectful, and directed the power of desire in a different direction, a higher direction? As you ponder this, work with self-forgiveness, if necessary. The second love assignment. Work with the 4 Ds of doing. Choose something you want to accomplish, something you know needs to get done. Despite the level of enthusiasm you have for the task, make a firm decision to do it. Once the decision is made, watch and water the desire to fulfill the task. Also observe the details as they manifest to accomplish the task. And finally, enjoy the delivery of the results based on the decision you made first followed by growing desire and fulfillment of details. The 4 Ds of doing. Enjoy and get it done. Peace and love.